We have a fast food crisis on our hands, and it all started on May 5th. That's when I got my Starbucks order from Uber Eats, and I ordered just two things. An iced chai tea latte, which was $8.70, nothing special, but that is a lot of money, plus a tomato and mozzarella sandwich for $7.75, for a grand total of $16.45, which is outrageous. But that's not how much I ended up paying. I also paid a service fee of $3.81, taxes $1.38, a delivery fee of $4.49, I left a tip for $5.22, so my grand total was $24.31. And that's with a $7 savings from paying for an Uber Eats subscription, which meant my order would have been over $31 for a small sandwich and a coffee. Somewhere out there, Uncle Dave Ramsey is having a heart attack right now. I mean, this is just getting out of control. We've got the service fee, the delivery fee, the tax fee, the tip fee, the fee, the fee FIFO fum fee, the might as well fee, cause we can fee, what the f you gonna do about it fee, add another dollar won't hurt fee, and it just keeps getting worse.
Well, you may be hard pressed to find any fast food item that actually costs $1 anymore.
$17 for 3 Filet-O-Fishes at McDonald's? Are you kidding me?
I don't have the money to buy fast food anymore.
Would you just miss the days when fast food was actually cheap?
Now, I used to remember a time way back in my day, back when I was younger. Fast food used to be fast, it used to be cheap, and it used to kind of be made out of food. Nowadays, fast food is not fast, it's definitely not cheap, and I'm not even sure it's made out of food anymore. It might be made out of microplastics or Soylent. Nowadays, fast food is bad for your health, and it's especially bad for your wallet.
When looking at fast food menus nationally, here are the average prices for fries from McDonald's, a Happy Meal, and a burger combo from Burger King.
Hold on, I'll be right back.
What could I do for you?
Can I have a medium french fries and a Happy Meal?
Anything else?
That's it. All right, so let's see what that total is gonna be. Appreciate you.
Have a good day.
Thank you. All right, so the total is $10.17.
Even CNBC dedicated an entire video showing the extent of this problem. Except in their video, I think they failed to explain one of the reasons why this is actually happening, which is corporate greed. Corporations are raking in record profits by increasing their prices, while we're told it's because of wage increases. And that's really what I want to explain in today's video and show you why fast food prices are actually getting out of control. So let's get into it. Hi, my name is Andrei Jikh. Hope you're doing well. Come for the finance and stay for the fast food of finance channels. So let me show you how we know that this is factually a real problem. Because sure, anyone can go to their local McDonald's, get some food, and say, look how expensive it's become. So economists need a much more scientific way because they can't just take our word for it or how we feel about it. So they've invented something called the Consumer Price Index, or the CPI, which tracks prices over time. And the way economists categorize fast food is if you can order food at a counter and then take it to go. If a place has that as an option, it's considered fast food. But if you looked in the Consumer Price Index report, you wouldn't find it under fast food. Instead, you'd find it under something called the limited service meals category, where restaurant food prices are tracked under something called the full service meals. So I just wanted to point out that there is a difference between fast food and restaurant food in how it's actually measured. Now, believe it or not, fast food prices have grown faster than restaurant food prices, and they've grown faster than the average for the Consumer Price Index itself.
From 2019 to 2023, prices in this category are up nearly 28%. That's more than full service meals. Think sit-down restaurants with servers, which increased nearly 24%. And it's also more than overall inflation, which increased 19%.
So scientifically, measurably, indubitably, prices have gone up substantially over the last few years, and the question that everyone is asking is why? What's the real reason? So here's why there's less and less items on the dollar menu and why prices are going up. According to that CNBC video, they say that the majority of the reason is because of labor costs and wage increases. And I'm not 100% sure I agree with them.
Still, as of late, labor is the main culprit.
Food is about a third of the cost of the menu item. So even as those costs moderate, in many cases, and particularly given the laws that we're seeing in California and some of the other, minimum wage laws and just increases that are happening, is that wage pressure remains elevated.
Now, I think there's one more thing that's missing from their explanation behind why prices are going up, which is there is an element of corporate greed to all of this, especially considering that corporations have made record profits in this time frame. So let's look at all the reasons that were given individually and just unpack all of it. The first reason that we're given is because of material costs. And that is true. Citing data from McDonald's and Chipotle, their packaging, their food and beverage costs did go up. Between 2022 and 2023, for example, the material costs went up by 11%. Also, between 2019 and 2022, there was a big imbalance between the amount of restaurants and the amount of workers. For example, there were 10,000 new restaurants opened in that time frame, but the amount of people who were willing to work went down by 25,000 people. So there was more demand for workers and there were less workers out there. And that equals fast food chains needing to pay people more to incentivize them to come back to work. And in some cases, they got so desperate, they started to offer $500 sign-up bonuses or more in some cases. So yes, their costs did go up, especially when states like California increased the minimum wage to $20 an hour. So I think we all have to agree and acknowledge that yes, costs going up was one of the reasons. But here's where I think that video from CNBC failed to give us the entire picture, because what it's missing is the element of corporate greed. And believe it or not, there is a way to measure corporate greed. Now, it's not perfect, it's by no means the only way to measure this, but it's pretty close in getting us there. Because one of the ways to tell how much corporate greed plays into economics, we have to look at something called the margin rate. Specifically, the net profit margin rate. And before I explain that, if you rely on fast food or caffeine to get you through the day like I do, you know that there's always a price to pay. Like every time I have caffeine, I get anxiety, and every time I eat fast food, I just get sicker. So I've spent a really long time trying to find alternatives to boost my mental clarity and my energy without the use of excess caffeine. And a couple months ago, a company called Magic Mind reached out to me and they sent me one of these. They were like, Andre, this is a blindfold. Put it over your eyes, you won't see the world, and you'll have less anxiety. Just kidding. They didn't actually say that or give me one of these black silks, but they did give me one of these. This is Magic Mind. Magic tricks sold separately. This will not actually give you magic superpowers. They actually gave me a bunch of samples of their mental productivity shot, and they asked to sponsor one of my videos, and I agreed because I really liked the taste and the way it made me feel. So much so that I drank all the samples and they had to send me another batch. That's genuinely how much I liked it. Now, this is not another energy drink. What this is a blend of natural ingredients designed to increase focus, boost memory, energy, and your mood while decreasing stress and inflammation. Here's a list of all the ingredients that they use, which are backed by over 200 real-world studies, and I'm not even exaggerating. You can look up the studies for each ingredient that's used in this bottle and what it's designed to do to your body, and you'll find some really fascinating things. Overall, for me personally, taking this over the last few months has really helped me lower my anxiety and my stress levels, especially when I'm preparing to film a big video. So if you really want to try this yourself, go to magicmind.com/Andre to get 48% off your first subscription for the next 10 days or 20% off a one-time purchase. They also have a 100% money-back guarantee, no questions asked. They're so confident that if you don't like it up to 100 days after you order it, you can get your money back. By the way, I also think they carry these at Sprouts, but it's cheaper if you get it online using that coupon code down below. So thank you, Magic Mind, for sponsoring this segment of the video, and now let's get back to it. So here's how we can scientifically measure corporate greed using the net profit margin rate, which remember is just how much a business makes per unit cost. In other words, how much they make for everything they sell after all their costs. Now, for a business like Tesla, let's say, their net profit margin rate might not tell us much about their corporate greed because so much of their business is growing thanks to automation, technology, supply chains, manufacturing, etc. But for a simple industry, like the fast food industry, specifically for McDonald's, who's had decades of experience and all of these things are already in place, it's not like they have to change their manufacturer or find new farmers every year to source their meat, or it's not like they're faced with automation and robots are making our burgers for us. This is a pretty reliable metric to use for those simpler industries and businesses that have been around for decades. So here's what I'm looking for. Assuming there's no corporate greed, we should see a net profit margin rate that's pretty stable, and if it grows, it should go up pretty slowly every year in line with inflation. But if there is corporate greed, then the net profit margin rate, I think, should have a big spike, specifically in a short amount of time after 2020. So let's check it out. This is McDonald's, and from 2010 to 2014, it's relatively stable, hovering around 20% profit margin, which is exactly what I thought I'd see. Then there's a dip in 2015 because they tried to rebrand and shift their marketing, they closed a bunch of restaurants and they made less money. But after 2015, they recovered to around 20% like usual. But that's only up to 2017. Watch what happens when we increase this to the recent years. Boom. After 2019, their net profit margin skyrockets to 27%. Then it dips at the height of the pandemic, but still it's higher than their average before the pandemic. This is when we were told supply chain issues, the materials are stuck at port, and of course the wage spiral explanation where there's not enough workers, so they had to pay people more, and so they did. That's why you're seeing this net profit margin dipping, as you can see. But corporations are not dumb. They pass on those costs to the consumer and then some. That's why the net profit margin skyrockets to above 30%, and now it's hovering above 33%. But now that wages and supply chains are less of a contributing factor, prices have not come down. Now maybe McDonald's is special in this case, and they were able to increase their profit margin rate because they invented robots to make our burgers for us. But they're kind of incompetent robots, which is also why the ice cream machines are always broken. So let's take a look at another option that's super popular, Chipotle. Their net profit margins were pretty high before the pandemic. There was a massive dip in 2015 though, partially due to a health risk which led to shutting down a bunch of restaurants, taking extra precautions which increased their cost, but then they recovered slowly. And then the pandemic happened. And like McDonald's, initially there was a dip in the profit margin because everyone was forced to stay at home, but very quickly as people ordered more online and the economy opened back up, it outpaced all of their material and labor costs. And now their net profit margin rate is sitting at pretty much an all-time high.
Although prices for fast food have soared, sales have remained strong. McDonald's, Wendy's, and Yum Brands, which owns KFC, Pizza Hut, and Taco Bell, have all seen revenue surge past pre-pandemic levels.
People are spending less money on fast food, especially at the $50K a year income level. Now that's also partially why the consumer price index is finally slowing down, which is the good news. But the bad news is the consumer price index, which tracks inflation, only tracks the growth of prices, but it's not really showing us that prices are going down. That would be deflation, which really hasn't happened yet and probably won't happen until there's some major changes. Wages come down, which usually doesn't happen until there's massive layoffs because of a recession, or if companies lose so much money that they have to pivot and change their strategy.
Prices in general across the economy very rarely ever come down once they've been reset higher. One of the reasons for that is wages, once they're reset higher, very rarely get pushed back down and reset lower.
So here's what I think the real reasons are behind why fast food prices are getting out of control. I think there is an element of corporate greed to it, probably a lot more than the media likes to talk about and admit to us. But I think the same is true for costs, probably a lot more than people like to give them credit for. And here's how I know this to be true. The cost for everything, including plastic and resins, wood and lumber, steel, are all higher now than they were before the pandemic. And specifically, the producer price index for food manufacturing is up 28.5% from before the start of the pandemic. And labor costs went up 28.5% as well, from $14 an hour in 2020 to $18 an hour where it is today. And even though I agree, making $14 an hour then is probably better than making $18 an hour now with all of this inflation, relative to cost, that is a lot of money. Specifically, it's 28.5%. But how much did fast food prices go up by in that same time frame? Slightly less than 28%. So if costs went up by 28% and fast food prices went up by roughly 28%, how much of that was corporate greed? Probably still some of it, because we can't look at the entire industry and dismiss that it isn't there. Because companies are run individually by different people, and not all the companies use the pandemic as an excuse to raise their prices. And you can see that in the data, with companies like Yum, which owns chains like Pizza Hut, KFC, and Taco Bell, which did not see an increase to the profit margin in the same way like some of my other examples did. Sure, maybe independently Taco Bell got greedy and made more money. I don't know, because they don't show that data independently, but Yum Brands as a conglomerate averaged out, so maybe one of their brands made a lot more money for whatever reason, but some of their other ones did not. But the businesses that got creative, that used the lockdowns as an opportunity to develop new apps and new ways to order food and new loyalty programs, did increase their profit margins and they did make more money. All of this to say is that if you do see a spike in the net profit margin rate, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's all attributed to corporate greed. It could be, but you have to look at it on a case-by-case basis. Unfortunately, I'm just not smart enough to tell you what percentage increase is due to corporate greed, and I don't have a team working for me, and I don't have enough time in my day to tell you which corporations are the greedy ones, but they do exist, lest we forget my $31 sandwich and a coffee. Realistically, there is an element of truth to how we feel about fast food. It's getting insanely expensive, regardless of what the reason is. And sometimes I wish the media would acknowledge that, because by leaving it out of their reporting feels like we're being gaslit. It feels like they're not telling us the entire truth, that corporate greed does play an element to this. And why aren't they? Are they afraid of upsetting their corporate overlords? There's probably some element of truth to that as well. But on the opposite side of that, I wish there was more of a focus on education about economics and how this stuff works so people can get a better job, so they don't have to worry about buying fast food and they can afford to eat healthy, which for some reason is more expensive than eating junk food. The healthcare industry's like, hold my beer. And that, kids, is how I met your mother. But that's a story for another day. Let me know your thoughts and what I might have missed. As always, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Smash the like button, subscribe if you haven't already. Don't forget to grab your free stocks. Links are down below, and then go track them automatically with the spreadsheet link down below on my Patreon. Thank you so much for watching this video. I'd love to see you back here on Monday and Friday, sometimes a Wednesday. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.